Llévame contigo a donde quieras. Y es que no hay mayor consuelo que una madre que te quiera y que algún día pudiera al cielo ir por tu escalera y entender que contigo, madre querida, valió la pena. Que no me canse nunca de mirarte y repetir con humildad la alegría del Señor con la bendición de la Santísima Virgen. Pureza sin mancha y tu belleza sin igual, cúbrenos con tu manto, Madre Santísima de San Juan.
Only the person that will come here, they will understand the feeling. So I hope to people that never been here yet, they will want it one day. Beautiful place, beautiful. And the feeling is, I cannot even explain to you, unexplainable. Just, inshallah, you're gonna come one day. Salam.
बाहुं सहस्रमभिनिं नितसायुधन्तं गिरिमेखलम् कहें प्रभु जी हमरी है बिनती दुखी जन को धीरज दो हारे नहीं वो कभी दुख
Shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. And what I said was all the praises, honor, and glory belongs to Yahweh, who is the Heavenly Father, in the name of His Son, Yahweh Shai, who is the Messiah, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which in Hebrew is Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. All right. And this lesson is going into how these these nations, as you see, these are these false idols and everything, man. These nations, they these heathen nations, worship these false idols, these statues and the gods they make up, and that's all wrong, wicked, okay, and even some of our own people worship that, man. So I was just reading the other day in Psalms. And or I forget how I came across this lesson, but I definitely was reading the Psalms the other day, and this came across my mind, man. So I'm gonna bring it out, and Lord willing, this lesson is edifying, okay? Because even some of our own people are into these different philosophies and worship these different idols of the other nations. All right, so this is the book of Psalms, chapter 135, starting in verse 15. The idols of the heathen are silver and gold, the work of men's hands, right? And that's part of, and you just seen that, okay? Some of those idols they literally had, okay, were literally had, they had silver and gold on them, and they were all the work of men's hands, man. Okay, these idols that these heathen nations bow down to in these other lands around the world, all they are is just the work of men's hands, and men cause people to worship them. You see, it says, it's the Hebrew word for idol. It says itazab, idol image, an idolatrous image, idol image, right? And these things aren't even real. It says, verse 16, they have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Neither is there any breath in their mouths. You see? Once again, these people, these heathens, they make them, like they make them with mouths and eyes and ears and all of that, but they're at the end of the day they're nothing, okay? And all you Israelites that worship, or in these other religions, okay, like Christianity, Islam, and all those other weird ass religions out there, okay? What you worship is just idols, okay? If you don't worship Yahweh Bahashim, if you don't worship Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, why Yahweh Shai, if you don't worship the Most High and His Son, then you serve an idol, okay? If you don't worship Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, that's the true name of the one the world ignorantly calls God and His Son, okay? Yahweh is the Most High's name, and Yahweh Shai is His Son's name. If you worship anything else but them, then you're worshiping idol. You're worshiping an idol, okay? Because they are the true and living powers, man. All right. And as you saw, those heathens, okay, hopefully it's still here, all right, because look, and once again, as I said, some of our people really even worship these things, like for example, this is in Puerto Rico, and a couple years ago, I had I went down to Puerto Rico, and man, oh man, I tell you, this I literally saw with my own eyes, the idol worship is heavy down there. You see? And they worship all these white images, and that's a part of what Esau's done to our people too. Okay? making them think that the Most High is a so-called white man, the angels are so-called white. You don't see not one so-called black, you know, idol up there. All right. And as you see, look closely, that's an altar right there. People come to it and kneel and pray and ask that idol you see sitting in the background. You know, people actually do that. I saw someone do it. Okay. And this is a visual example of this is another idol that they have out there. This is a visual example of that we just had. They have eyes but they see not, ears but they hear not, mouths but there's no breath in them. You see? Our people worship these things. Okay? You know? You see a nigga worshiping Islam. And that's what the scriptures talk about. Let me get this real quick. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 64. It says, and Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people. Right, we Israelites, all right, we're amongst all nations of people. And this is why you see, you know, people who don't look so-called black or Latino Native American, right? For example, you'll see people who look like, you know, so-called Asians or so-called white people, but, you know, they have soul to them. They have flavor to them. You know, they could sing, they could dance, they could ball, you know. Why? Because it's not about appearance, but, you know, they're Israelite. They have the spirit of an Israelite. Okay, our people are scattered amongst all nations of people, okay, around the world. It says, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And that goes into, you know, the different religions our people worship. You know, for example, if you got some of our people scattered in China, you know, then they would, you know, end up worshiping, you know, being into a Chinese religion, India, and, you know, worshiping those gods, you know, those idols and everything, because they're not real. All right. You know, and I also wanted to do this lesson, you know, to go into that, how these idols ain't real, man. And there's no point, you know, in worshiping an idol. Okay, there's no point in worshiping anything other than Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, you know, those idols can't help you. They can't do anything for you. You see? Let me get this one, because people actually bow to those things, and the scriptures tell us, all right, it's in our law, it's in the Ten Commandments. We Israelites, we're not supposed to bow to anything other than Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. Exodus chapter 20, starting in verse 1. And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am Yahweh thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Bear with me just 1 second. All right? We're not supposed to have any other gods except for Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. We're not supposed to bow, all right, to anything other than Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. All right? You know, we worship the Father and we worship the Son. Verse 4. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. All right? Like you seen that woman do, who called herself a Buddhist. You know, she was bowing to the idol in her room. Okay? Now, if she's an Israelite, I don't know. All right? But that's an example. You know, you're definitely not supposed to be bowing down to them. You see? It says, for I, Yahweh, thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So you're not supposed to make any, you know, idols and bow down to it. Okay? You're not supposed to make you a statue of something and to bow down to it, man. Okay? The Most High is a jealous power. All right? You know, some people like to say that, use this verse to say that we can't make pictures or animations, you know, of Yahweh Shai and the angels and everything. All right, but that's not what it's talking about. It's saying you can't make a picture or sculpture or anything like that to bow down unto it. You see? Because idol worship is heavy, man. It's Leviticus 20. And this Esau, this devil, he doesn't make it any. He doesn't. He's in power, but, you know, he doesn't use his authority for righteousness. He lets everyone worship whatever they are. In America, you have the freedom of religion. What is that? Okay? Leviticus 26:1. Ye shall make you no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it. For I am Yahweh your power. See? So you're not supposed to bow down to it. All right? And when, as you've seen people, with these idols and stuff, they literally bow down to these things. These heathens, they bow down to it, man. This is why they have to be ruled over and taught the ways of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, which they will. All right? Micah chapter 4, getting right to the point, verse 2. And many nations shall come and say, come, and let us go to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and to the house of the power of Slakia. Let us go to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. You see? So in the kingdom of heaven, you see the nations, they're not going to be worshiping their own idols. Nah, man. They're not going to do that. They're going to be worshiping Yahweh, all right, and Yahweh Shai. Okay? They're going to be worshiping the true and living power, man. Okay? Let me see something real quick. Trying to find. Okay. Let me see. It's an account here with Not Amun and Alicia. All right. Just try to find it. All right, because Not Amun basically was a leper. All right. Salakia. Bear me 1 second. Just trying to find this account. I mean, the account is here, but I'm looking for a certain scripture. Here we go. Got it. This is the book of 2 Kings chapter 5, starting in verse 14. It says, Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of the Most High. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean, because he had leprosy. All right. Verse 15. Here's the point. And he returned to the man of the Most High, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. See, the only true and living power is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. You see? All these other gods of these other nations, they're nothing. They're literally nothing, man. You like that was the point I showed that very last picture. Look, all the gods of the other nations, you could do this to them. Can't do that to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. You see? All that, but that idol right there, that's only stone. It's only stone, dirt, rocks, It was Lord put it on my spirit to do a lesson on this. But this is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13. Starting in verse 10, it says, But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope. Let me read it again. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13 and verse 10. But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, to show art in, and resemblances of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand. You see, and it said ancient hand, meaning, because, for example, you look at an ancient person, an elderly person, they have their elderly people, are known, or commonly known to have wisdoms, and wisdom you acquire over time. So basically, it's going into like a skilled hand, a person who is good at making idols and carving and things like that, you know. But it says, but miserable are they, right? And in dead things is their hope, right? In dead things, the idol, who call them gods, which are the works of, and they call them gods, but they're really none, which are the works of men's hands. Brothers, this is really, nations of these heathen nations around the world literally bow down to stone, brick, and mortar, man. Okay? It says, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, to show art and in resemblances of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand. And I used to work, over in New York, and while I was over there, sometimes I would see I saw a Chinese shrine or something like that, I remember one time, not even in New York, in another place, I had walked into this Northern Kingdom woman's house, and it was all types of, basically idolatry all over the house, man. Okay. Verse 11, this is now a carpenter that felleth timber, right? Felleth means to cut down, or to cut, basically, Think about it. One who works in carpentry, he's cutting down a tree, right? After he hath sawn down a tree meet for the purpose, and taken off all the bark skillfully round about, right? So he cut the tree down, saw it, saw it to a point where it's good for use, took off all the bark around it, and hath wrought it handsomely, and made a vessel thereof fit for the service of man's life. And after spending the refuse of his work to dress his meat, hath filled himself. Let me get this in the GNT, all right? Salaki. Let me just pull this up. Right, I'm gonna start from the top. Wisdom of Solomon 13, starting in verse 10. But the most miserable people of all are those who rest their hopes on lifeless things, who worship things that have been made by human hands, images of animals artistically made from gold and silver, or some useless stone carved by someone years ago. And that's all these idols are. Okay, a skilled, and it's crazy. People really worship these things. It's just an idol. You can piss on it, you can shit on it, it's not going to do anything to you. You could cuss at it, it's not going to do anything. Alright? Verse 11, a skilled woodworker may saw down some suitable tree, carefully strip off the bark, and then with skillful craftsmanship make from it an object that will serve some useful purpose. He will take the leftover pieces and use them as firewood to cook a meal that he can sit down to and enjoy. Right? But now listen. Verse 13, but among that scrap wood, he may take one piece that isn't good for anything. Maybe it's crooked and full of knots. Because, in trees, you have knot, in wood, you have knots and stuff, right? It says, and carefully carve it in his leisure time, using spare moments to shape it into the crude image of a person. Let me look at that word crude. Crude, it says, constructed in a rudimentary or makeshift way, showing little finesse or subtlety, and as a result unlikely to succeed. All right, unrefined, primitive. All right, so let me go back to the KJV. So it's talking about, a carpenter, taking wood, and he uses the leftover pieces, to make something, right? Wisdom of Solomon 13 and 13, and taking the very refuse among those which serve to no use, being a crooked piece of wood and full of knots, hath carved it diligently, right? So he's making this wood into something, right? When he had nothing else to do, and formed it by the skill of his understanding, and fashioned it to the image of a man, or made it like some vile beast, right? He could have made that, carved that wood into some. Keep in mind, he's the one that's carving it, right? Making it into maybe a man or some beast or whatever. Right, says laying it over with vermilion and with paint coloring it red and covering every spot therein, starts decorating it. Verse 15, and when he had made a convenient room for it, set it in a wall and made it fast with iron. Right, so he made a room for it, for whatever he made, whatever he carved up, right? Set it in the wall, probably put some nails in it or whatnot, made it stay in place. Verse 16, for he provided for it that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself. And that's what these idols are, man. Okay? Unable to help itself. These people bow down to it. People bow down to these things. Okay? You seen them people, Jake go out there to Mecca or whatever to worship that Kaaba stone. That shit is unable to help itself. Don't you know the Lord created that stone? You see? There's a whole lot of idolatry in this world, man. It's people who literally do these things while we speak. Somebody somewhere right now is bowing down to an idol. I can guarantee it. Okay? As you listening to this, somebody somewhere is bowing down to an idol. Right? Northern Kingdom do it too, man. You go in their houses and it's all full of stuff. You see? So it says, knowing that it was unable to help itself, for it is an image, it hath need of help. Right? Those idols that they bow down to can't help itself. If it falls over, it can't even pick itself up. Right? They put arms on it, but it can't even raise itself up. Verse 17, then maketh he prayer for his goods, for his wife and children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which hath no life. See? And like I said, one of these I actually seen, like this one, out there in Puerto Rico, they go to it and pray to that thing. Okay? Northern Kingdom is heavily into idolatry, man. Heavily into it. They'll pray to, their they'll pray to what they call Mother Mary, wrap beads around their hands, start rocking back and forth and stuff like that. And the idol ain't hearing them. And as it says, let me read this in the GNT. It says, verse 17, it says, but he is not ashamed to pray to this lifeless thing about his marriage, his children, and his possessions. So you treating it like it's the Lord or something. You go into it, praying to it for about your marriage. You're treating it as a god, man. You have to have some type of sickness or something. And the truth is what, if brothers were into that, now they in the truth, the truth cured them from that. It says, it is weak, but he prays to it. Verse 18, it is weak, but he prays to it for health. It is dead, but he prays to it for life. It has no experience, but he prays to it for help. It cannot walk, but he prays to it for a successful journey. Its hands have no power, but he asks it to help him in business and making money and in his work. Read that in the KJV. Verse 18, for health he calleth upon that which is weak. For life prayeth to that which is dead. For aid humbly beseecheth that which hath least means to help. And for a good journey he asketh of that which cannot set a foot forward. And for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hands, asketh ability to do of him that is most unable to do anything. You see? So these idols that people worship and these nations worship, man, they're nothing. Okay? The Most High is the one that is real. Okay? Look at creation. Who do you think created that? Alright? Not no damn white man. Okay? Not none of those idols. Alright? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 96, and verse 5. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai made the heaven. I'm gonna start from verse 4. Alright? In the NLT, great is Yahweh, he is most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods, right? Above all these false idols out here. Verse 5, the gods of other nations are mere idols, but the Lord made the heavens, right? All we see around us was created by Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, man. Alright? Yahweh through Yahweh Shai created everything we see. Okay? All this whole creation we live in, alright, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai created it, man. Alright? None of these other idols and everything like that. So if you are, a so-called black, Latino, Native American, right? It's time for you to wake up, man. Come out of that idolatry, because that is part of the curses, Even with our people, our people in here in America, okay? So-called blacks, you Negroes, you worship, a lot of them worship Christianity. They worship, that white image. That thing can't help you. They worship They worship Jesus Christ. That's not the name of the Messiah. That's somebody else. Who the hell is that? Scriptures tell you that there's none of the name given among men. There's none of the name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Acts 4:12. So who the hell is Jesus Christ? You see? You know? As I was speaking about creation, I'm going to just read, some of this. Psalm 104, starting in verse 1. Bless Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, O my soul. O Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, my power. Thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot. See? And just going to, the so-called UFOs, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, right? Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers of flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. You see? The Most High is the one that did all these things. Not no heathen, not no idol of some other nation. And as you've seen in one of those things that these Elamites, these so-called East Indians worship, these dirty ass East Indians, they talking about pray to this God, this idol, that idol for different things. When you could just come to the most, when we as Israelites, we could just come to the Most High through Yahweh Shai and ask him for anything. Let me get that real quick. Hold on. Hey, the scriptures say this. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 6. Here it is. These heathens, they gotta, these Elamites, they go ask multiple gods, their idols, right? Because I don't want to even call them gods. Okay, you could go. They go ask them their idols, their multiple idols for different things. Idol for everything, right? If their idols were real. All right, and we know this flesh is imperfect. Okay, shouldn't they take if those idols were real, right? That those Elamites, they would forget, once in a while, what God will slack, what idol, all right, to call on. Wouldn't that offend that idol? If that idol was a real God, and you forgot to call, and you forgot the name, you got it mixed up, wouldn't that offend that idol? You see? It's just a lot of bugged out stuff in this world, but the Lord's gonna come set it right. But they talking about going to ask them for all different things, going to multiple to ask for different things, right? But our power, our Father Yahweh, okay, in the name of Yahweh Shai, we can ask him for anything, and he already knows. Matthew 6:32. For after all these things do the Gentiles seek, for your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. See, the Most High already knows what we need, man. Okay, back in Psalm 104, in verse 6, thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted to go away. All right, let me just jump down. Okay. Well, actually, no, I'm just gonna read through it. Actually. The point is, verse 24, O Yahweh, how manifold are thy works. Okay? The works of the Most High, man. And just by looking at creation, you should be able to tell that the Most High is real. That was the earlier part of Wisdom of Solomon 13. Wisdom of Solomon 13. I'm going to get it in the GNT. All right? Wisdom of Solomon 13, getting right to the point. Right? Verses 4 through 5. It says, since people are amazed at the power of these things, right? It says, and how they behave, talking about nature, they ought to learn from them that their maker is far more powerful. When we realize how vast and beautiful the creation is, we are learning about the creator at the same time, right? Looking at creation, you should be able to tell that there's got to be a higher power that made this, because the world runs in a natural ecosystem. Hence the word system. A system doesn't make itself. Okay? Why does the sun go up at a certain time and go down at a certain time, and the moon come up at a certain time, go down at a certain time? You see? Why is it day and night on each side of the world? Why do the seasons come in? Why is it not winter right now? Okay? You see? It's a system, and the Lord created it. So I should tell you that there is a higher power, and His name is Yahweh, and His Son's name is Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, they're the true and living powers, and the Most High is about to send His Son back. All right, to put righteousness on this earth, to stamp it down, man, and set righteousness up forevermore. And all these heathen nations, they're gonna learn who the true power is, man. Okay, and they're gonna worship Him. All right, and they're gonna know the people of the true power. Okay, which are the Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. They're gonna bow down to us, man. This earth, this world is about to change. Okay, but throughout history, hey, Israel, man, has had a has had a history about worshiping other gods, man. Okay, and they still do it now. Only in the kingdom are they not going to do that no more. All right, but hey, as far as the times we coming into, this scripture is for all those that don't work, for all Israelites that don't worship Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. This is the book of Judges, chapter 10, starting at verse 13 to 14. Yet ye have forsaken me and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. So all you Christians out there that reject this truth, you so-called blacks, Latino, Native Americans that's in Christianity, and you reject this truth, okay, when all hell breaks loose in this country, is lawlessness, famine, mass death and murder, concentration camps, all of these things, when those times come, okay, go and cry to your Jesus Christ. To all you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Latino, Native Americans that worship Islam, go cry to your Allah. Let that fake ass Allah deliver you out of tribulation, out of the times to come, and from the nuclear destruction that's coming, because it is coming. Okay, and if all you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans that don't worship Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, let the God you serve, or the idol you serve rather, right? When these times come, let them deliver you out of this harshness that's coming, man. All right. So, hey, man, with that's it, man. All right. So, giving all praises, honor, and glory to the true and living power of Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Chakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, every well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.